right, so today we're diving into something pretty fascinating.
Yeah, it's a really interesting story.
Remember all that talk about the potential TikTok ban?
Oh, yeah.
Well, it seems like American users, they've already started jumping ship.
Really?
And get this, they're landing on a Chinese app called RedNote.
Wow.
And it's actually become the #1 app in the U.S. App Store.
Like in the entire App Store?
Yeah, seemingly overnight.
That's wild.
It is wild.
So what is this RedNote?
Oh, it's a video and photo sharing app.
Kind of like Instagram or TikTok?
Exactly. Already huge in China.
Oh,
300 million users.
wow. But is it like all in Chinese?
Yeah, primarily Mandarin speaking.
Huh, interesting.
And here's the other thing. Unlike most of the Chinese internet, it's not blocked by China's firewall.
So you're saying Americans are using a Chinese app that Chinese people are also using?
Yeah, it's this really unique situation.
Wow, so they're like directly interacting with each other.
Yeah, Americans are engaging with a platform that's super deeply rooted in Chinese culture.
That's fascinating.
And it's all happening organically, there's no official channels pushing this.
So it's not just about finding a new place to post, dance videos or whatever.
Right.
It's like actual interaction between these two cultures that are often, seen as worlds apart.
Exactly, and it's happening on such a massive scale.
Like, how massive are we talking?
I mean, Americans are asking about Chinese slang. Chinese teens are asking for help with their English.
No way.
There are even influencers offering Mandarin lessons on, essential social media lingo.
Wow, that's incredible. It's like a whole new world opening up.
It really is, and it makes you wonder, right?
About what?
What's driving this? Is it just about finding a TikTok replacement?
I mean, it's got to be more than that, right?
Yeah, this is happening so fast, it feels like there's something deeper going on.
Like what?
Maybe Americans are seeking out a more authentic online experience,
Yeah, maybe.
Or maybe there's this fascination with engaging with a culture that's often portrayed as, other.
That's an interesting thought.
Or is it a form of rebellion, against the potential U.S. restrictions?
Like they're saying, you can't tell us what to do. We'll go wherever we want.
Exactly. It's like this digital defiance.
I like that digital defiance.
I mean, it could be a combination of all these things, right?
Curiosity,
Yeah.
a desire for connection, and a little bit of that digital defiance.
Exactly. And it's all playing out on this platform that's so different from what most American users are used to.
Right. It's not a simple platform swap.
No, not at all. This is a whole cultural exchange happening.
That's really cool.
Did you hear about the cat tax?
The what?
The cat tax.
What's that?
So Chinese users are demanding a cat tax from new American users.
What does that even mean?
Payment in the form of cute pet photos.
Oh, that's hilarious.
I know, right?
That's a great example of the kind of lighthearted cultural exchange happening on RedNote.
Totally. It speaks to the humor and the playfulness that's become a hallmark of this whole interaction.
And who doesn't love a good cat picture?
Exactly. And it's not just about the cat tax.
What else is there?
It's heartwarming to see how welcoming Chinese users are being, towards Americans joining the platform.
Oh, really?
There are stories of them helping Americans with their English homework,
Wow.
teaching them Mandarin slang,
That's amazing.
even lightly roasting them.
Oh, so they're not just being overly nice, they're keeping it real.
Exactly. It's all in good fun.
That's so cool.
It really is, and it's creating this real sense of camaraderie.
Yeah, I can see that.
There's a researcher named Jiali Fan. She's been studying RedNote,
Yeah.
and she noted that for a lot of Chinese users, this is their first direct interaction with Americans online.
Wow, that's a huge deal.
It is, especially when you consider, the political climate and how these two countries are often portrayed in opposition to each other.
Right, like constantly at odds.
Exactly. But here they are finding common ground, shared struggles.
It's like humanizing the other.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's something traditional media often fails to do.
Definitely. There's this quote from one Chinese user that I thought really captured it.
What did they say?
They said, "It's honestly insane. No one would have expected that we could meet this one day, openly communicate like this."
Wow, that's powerful.
It is, right?
It really highlights how unexpected and groundbreaking this whole situation is.
Totally. And it speaks to the power of the internet.
To connect people across borders and cultures in ways that we never thought possible.
Exactly. It's like a whole new era of communication is emerging.
It's pretty exciting.
It really is. But, we can't just ignore the elephant in the room.
Oh, yeah.
Data privacy and censorship.
Right, those are serious issues.
I mean, these are the same concerns that sparked all the talks about banning TikTok.
Absolutely, and those concerns are totally valid here, too.
Totally. It's exciting to see this cultural exchange happening, but
Yeah.
we have to consider the risks.
For sure. I mean, we're talking about a Chinese app operating outside of China's usual internet restrictions.
Right. Like, is RedNote collecting our data?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if so, could that data be accessed by the Chinese government?
That's the big question.
We know social media in China is heavily regulated.
Mm-hmm.
So it's natural to wonder, if RedNote is subject to similar controls.
Even when it's being used by people outside of China.
Yeah,
It's a
exactly.
bit unsettling.
And then there's the issue of transparency.
Right. Like, how do we know what's really going on?
Well, there's this cybersecurity expert, Adrianus Warmanhoven,
Okay.
and he's expressed some concerns about the lack of clarity surrounding RedNote's data collection practices.
Like, what kind of concerns?
Well, for one thing, their terms and conditions are mainly in Mandarin,
Oh, wow.
which makes it super difficult for non-Chinese speakers to fully understand what they're agreeing to.
Yeah, that's a problem.
And then there's censorship.
Right. Like, how much control does RedNote have over the content?
Well, we've heard from some U.S. users who have had posts flagged,
Really?
particularly ones related to LGBTQ plus topics.
Oh, that's concerning.
It raises red flags about what's considered acceptable on the platform.
Definitely. And it seems like the U.S. government is starting to take notice. Yeah, there was a U.S. official who spoke to CBS News.
Okay.
And they said that RedNote could face restrictions unless it divests from Chinese ownership.
Wow, so this whole lighthearted cultural exchange thing is happening
Yeah.
under the shadow of potential government intervention.
It's kind of a scary thought.
It is a bit like we've stumbled into this awesome party,
Yeah.
but we're not sure who's hosting, what the rules are, or even how long it's going to last.
That's a great analogy. It's exciting, but also a little unnerving.
Yeah, exactly. And that uncertainty is part of what makes this whole situation so fascinating.
It really does.
Like, it reminds us that the internet is this amazing tool for connection,
Hmm.
but it exists within this complex landscape.
Shaped by governments and corporations and algorithms.
Right. Things we don't always understand or control.
So we have this incredible organic connection happening,
Yeah.
but it's happening within a framework that's kind of opaque.
And potentially subject to these external forces.
It makes you wonder about the long-term viability of this whole cultural exchange.
For sure, it raises some big questions.
Like, can this kind of organic connection actually be sustained?
In a world that's increasingly shaped by government regulations and corporate interests.
It's almost like, is RedNote a temporary anomaly?
Or could it be something more?
Like a sign of a different way of thinking about online communities?
And cross-cultural communication.
It's tough to say.
It's a really complex issue.
No easy answers.
On one hand, you have this incredible potential for building bridges.
Yeah, breaking down barriers between cultures.
Right. But on the other hand, you have these legitimate concerns about data privacy and censorship.
And the influence of these external forces.
Delicate balance.
It really is. And it's important to remember that all of this is happening against the backdrop of real-world tensions between the U.S. and China.
Oh, yeah, that's a crucial point.
We're talking about, the potential for a tumultuous Trump presidency.
Right.
Increasingly strained relations.
It makes this whole digital bridge idea feel even more fragile.
Like a delicate ecosystem.
That could be disrupted at any moment.
Exactly. So where do we go from here?
That's the big question.
What does this RedNote phenomenon mean for the future of online communication?
And for the relationship between the U.S. and China.
Yeah, it really feels like we're at a crossroads here.
That does, huh?
On the one hand, you've got this incredible potential, for building understanding, breaking down stereotypes.
Yeah.
But on the other, you have these very real concerns.
About data security.
Yeah, and like the potential for this whole thing to be, disrupted.
By outside forces.
Exactly. It's a tough balance.
It is, and it's really hard to say how it'll all play out.
Right, like will this RedNote thing just fizzle out?
Or could it actually be a sign of something more lasting?
It's almost like we're watching a social experiment unfold in real time.
Yeah, I like that it really is like an experiment.
You've got millions of people from these two very different cultures.
Connecting and interacting.
In a way that was totally unimaginable just a few years ago.
Yeah, and that's what makes this so fascinating, right?
Totally.
It really challenges our assumptions about online communities.
And the role they can play in fostering, cross-cultural dialogue.
Right, we tend to think of the internet as this breeding ground for echo chambers.
Yeah.
Polarization.
But RedNote is kind of offering a glimpse of something different.
A space for genuine connection and understanding.
Even between people from these seemingly like totally different backgrounds.
Exactly, and that's pretty powerful.
It is. It's like a glimmer of hope. It's a fragile one.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, government intervention,
Yeah.
even just shifts in the online landscape, could disrupt this whole thing.
Yeah, easily.
It's such a delicate balance.
It is the lines between, the digital and the physical.
They're getting blurrier and blurrier.
Yeah. And online interactions are inevitably shaped by real-world stuff.
Like politics.
Exactly. Economics.
So as someone who's been following all of this so closely,
Yeah.
what are you really watching for?
Hmm.
What signs would tell you whether this is just a fleeting trend?
Or something bigger.
Yeah, like something more substantial.
I think a key indicator is going to be how RedNote itself responds.
To all the scrutiny.
Yeah. Will they address those concerns about data privacy
Mm-hmm.
and transparency? Exactly. Will they take steps to make sure the platform stays open?
And allows for this kind of unfettered exchange.
Even as it grows.
Yeah, and attracts more attention.
That's going to be crucial.
And what about the users themselves?
Yeah.
Do you think this initial excitement for, cross-cultural exchange, will it fade as the novelty wears off?
Or could this evolve into something more?
Something deeper and more meaningful.
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It really is.
And honestly, I don't have the answer.
Yeah.
But I think we have to remember that humans are social creatures.
Mm-hmm.
We crave connection.
Yeah.
We want understanding.
We're always looking for ways to bridge those gaps.
Right. And I think RedNote has tapped into that.
That fundamental human need.
Yeah. And that's a powerful force.
It really is.
You can't underestimate that.
That's a great point. Even in a world that feels so divided and polarized.
There's still this desire for connection.
That goes beyond borders and ideology.
That's the biggest takeaway here.
Yeah.
RedNote reminds us that despite all the challenges,
Yeah.
the potential for human connection, it's still there.
It's a powerful message.
It is. And I hope we can all kind of carry that with us.
As we navigate this crazy world.
This complex, interconnected world.
Yeah, that's a perfect note to end on.
It is, huh?
Well, thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into the RedNote phenomenon.
It was my pleasure.
It's a story that's still unfolding.
Definitely.
But it raises such important questions.
About online communication and cross-cultural exchange.
Yeah, and the balance between freedom and security.
In our digital age.
Who knows what the future holds for RedNote and this whole cultural exchange thing.
It's a mystery.
But one thing's for sure.
What's that?
A fascinating story.
Oh, yeah.
And it's going to keep capturing our attention for a while.
I think so, too.
So until next time, keep exploring.
Stay curious.
Because you never know what you'll discover out there in the digital world.